My pleasure. Well, thank you for all being here this evening. My name is Tony Giunta. Now, if that name sounds familiar, I'm really here for two reasons tonight. One is to introduce Frank, but the second is to clear up some confusion over the name. Yes. Please allow me to do that. Now, first of all, I'd like to thank a lot of you in this room who have congratulated me for running for the first congressional seat as a congressman. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not running for Congress. In the first district, I'm not even in the first district, I'm in the second district. But that aside is the reason why I want to go over the confusion part of it. You see, I was actually mayor of the city of Franklin, which is where I live, for 4 years, from 2000 to 2004. Prior to that, I was on the school board in Franklin for another 2 years, so from 98 to 2000. Now during that time, I was in the media a lot, right? I was in the paper quite a bit, very active. And it took me 20 years, from 1986 when I first moved here, all the way up to being mayor and all that media exposure, to get people to spell my last name correctly. So working with Gordon King and Anne-Marie Timmons at the Monitor, finally they got the name right after all those years. However, about midway through my first 2 years as mayor, I started hearing rumblings from down in Manchester. So people would come up to me and they would say, "Hey, congratulations, I'm so glad you ran as state rep and you won." I said, "Well, I didn't run for state rep." "Oh, sure you did, down in Manchester." I said, "Well, I'm not in Manchester, I'm the mayor of Franklin. Last I knew, when you're the mayor of Franklin, you have to live in Franklin. And I got enough on my hands without being down in Manchester." So I thought that was awfully strange, because, Giunta is a very short name, but it's a difficult name to pronounce, and there aren't many of us. We're rare up here in New Hampshire. So I was saying, who is this guy down in Manchester? Okay, time goes by, then they come up and they say, "Hey, good luck running for mayor of Manchester. We can't wait for you to run as mayor of Manchester." But I had enough problems as mayor of the city of Franklin. And who is this guy? Now, in the meantime, to add to that confusion, I was a strong supporter of the tax cap in the city of Franklin. I was cutting taxes as much as I could, reducing the budget, reducing spending, and this guy's doing the same thing. So it added to the confusion of who the heck is this? So I finally got to meet Frank at, I believe it was a Manchester Republican Committee fundraiser, where we had not been introduced to each other yet, but we were both there at the event. And I looked across the room, and I saw Frank, and he saw me, and we had not been introduced, remind you. But I knew exactly who that was, and he knew exactly who I was. And we both ran to each other, and since then, we found out a lot about each other's past. So, the next question I want to clear up. Are we related? The answer is yes.
Really?
Now, Morgan is Frank's lovely wife, and she's actually done some of the genealogy, and she traced it back to the fact that Frank's grandfather and my grandfather grew up together in Messina, Sicily. So I suspect we're cousins, and in fact in the past I've called uncles and aunts with a lot less relationship than that much, so we're cousins. Now, what about the spelling of the last name? Well, apparently the story goes that when Frank's grandfather came from Ellis Island, they transposed the I and the U. And they gave him the option, I suspect, of changing it and getting it right. And he looked, and there were 500 people in line, and they said it would take hours and maybe days for you to get to the front of the line. He says, "You know what? Let me start off on the right foot in this country. Let me get out of here." And so I'm sure he headed right out of there. Little did he know the problems that would cause so many years later in New Hampshire.
How about that?
But anyway, that's a little bit, hopefully that clears up some of the confusion. So with that clear, it's my honor to introduce to you Frank, who has been mayor of the city of Manchester, largest city in New Hampshire, an alderman for Manchester, a state representative for Manchester, now a person running for Congress, a congressman, in the 1st Congressional District in New Hampshire. But, most importantly, my cousin, Frank Guinta.